Turner home entertainment videos aren't as well remembered or as well revered as Coliseum home videos. When it comes to wrestling VHS tapes, the Coliseum collection's what most fans have nostalgia for, and hey, that's awesome, I hold the same nostalgia, but I don't discriminate either. If there's a weird wrestling tape out there that hasn't been uploaded to Peacock or WWE Network, then I'm gonna check it out. If it isn't that well known, or if there's a high probability that not many people have watched it in the past, then even better. So say hello to WCW New Blood on the block, and no, it has nothing to do with that New Blood, thank God. This tape, released in 1993, celebrates the new stars of World Championship Wrestling, the young talent of the company who are sure to elevate WCW to new heights. Brian Pillman, awesome. Cold Scorpio, awesome. Johnny B. Bad, okay. Marcus Bagwell, alright. It gets worse though. Heavy Metal Van Hammer's also featured in this video, and I'm guessing he didn't have a pretty enough face to get featured on the cover, but hey, at least WCW were putting some thought into promoting the younger talent in the company with this video release. I'm sure these young guys didn't receive a penny in royalties though. Let's double click the video file, let's pop this tape into the VCR and check out the New Blood on the block, a sneak peek into the future of professional wrestling. Alright, I have no idea what to expect here. I'm scripting this video while I watch WCW New Blood on the block, and I'm not sure if it's a highlight video, a match compilation, interviews. I have no clue at all, but I'll talk about everything this tape has to offer, and I hope it's awful. I really do. It starts off with a glorious Turner signature that doesn't hit as hard as seeing the Coliseum video intro, but sure, what can you do? Jesse Ventura presents the show, and he says the young guns of WCW are hard-hitting and high-flying. Some of the guys we're about to see have been around for a year or two, like Flan Brian and Johnny B. Bad. Some have only been in the company for a few months, like Cold Scorpio and Eric Watts. For fuck's sake, Eric Watts. Jesse tells us to hold on to our seats and get ready to be dazzled by the young blood of WCW. According to Jesse, these guys are going places. Alright, I'm holding on to my seat, I'm ready to be dazzled. Hit me with it, Jesse, fucking do it. Okay, I wanted it to be awful, and I guess I'm getting my wish right away. This is a tape that can only get better from this point on. Nothing against Van Hammer the guy, but man, this poor dude got pushed way too soon and he had no time to develop. Anyway, we've got a Van Hammer music video here, obviously, complete with wrestling moves, headbanging, pyro, girls dancing. It's wonderful. We then go to Van Hammer's debut, a Clash of the Champions 16, Hammer versus the tailor-made man Terry Taylor. Looks like this is a clip compilation video because the entrances have been heavily edited, though in saying that, the 1 minute 5 second match is complete. Van Hammer did have a decent look, not gonna lie, he certainly looks the part, and seeing as he's so green here, it did make sense to put him in a squash match. Someone out there right now is saying, what about poor Terry Taylor? Yeah, what about him? He tried to cheat by using this sweet Omen gaming laptop, but Van Hammer shrugged it off. He headbanged a little, Terry Taylor gets body slammed a few times, we see 3 clotheslines from Heavy Metal Van Hammer, and then he performs a front suplex. He then gets the bright idea to start a We Will Rock You foot stomp and clap, and the crowd are into it. I can't lie, the crowd are into it. Van Hammer then goes up for the finish, a diving knee across Taylor's back that didn't look good, and Van Hammer wins this match. If this is the future of WCW, guys, I can see the company being out of business in around 10 years or so. I think they might get bought out. The next set of clips from Van Hammer feature what's probably the best thing he ever did in WCW, his Falls Count Anywhere match against Cactus Jack at Clash 17 in January 1992. There's a big difference here in Van Hammer's abilities now that he had a little more experience, but he still ends up losing the match. This one's been cut down quite a lot. 1 second the guys are in the ring, the next Van Hammer's jumping on Cactus at the rampway, and then it goes to the outside where the men fight in a bullpen and Abdullah the Butcher shows up to lend Cactus a hand. Van Hammer had no chance. The next stud we're going to look at in this tape is Marcus Bagwell, long before his days as Buff Daddy. The match that gets shown here is from Beach Blast 1992, Bagwell vs Greg Valentine, and before you pass judgment, this one isn't an awful undercard match by any means. It's not great, but it isn't a bad match. It's also a weird choice as a showcase match for Marcus, seeing as he takes a loss here just like Van Hammer did in the Cactus Jack match. Tony Schiavone says this was a case of Bagwell paying his dues against a veteran of the business. Next we have Bagwell versus Terry Taylor at Super Brawl 2, and this is a match that Bagwell actually won, though honestly I think the Beach Blast match was better. After this, we get the best Bagwell match featured on this tape, Bagwell and Eric Watts versus the Hollywood Blondes. Yes, I know it's Eric Watts, but out of these 3 Marcus Bagwell matches, this one was the best in my opinion. Again, it's heavily cut up, and the choices that are made during the editing stage are a bit ridiculous. Why show all the opening lockups when you could show all the high spots, you know? You're maybe thinking too that this kind of presentation is totally redundant. Nobody wants to watch match clips like this, and I agree, it does suck nowadays. But back then, there would have been folks who only had this tape and maybe a few others. Maybe they only had this tape and nothing else. It's not that the video's bad for its time, it's just we have it so much better now with everything being on demand. Anyway, the Hollywood Blondes win this match, and if you want to see a fine example of a tag team making their opponents look like $1 million, or at least trying to, check out this match at Super Brawl 3, because Pillman and Austin worked their asses off. Next, we get a brief look at Clash of the Champions 21. Watts and Kensuke Sasaki versus Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson. Eric Watts had a $10,000 bounty on his head for this one, but he made beautiful Bobby tap out to the STF. This was when the Dangerous Alliance began to fall apart, and here's a good example of how far that faction had fallen. Cold Scorpio's up next, and he says Scorpio's the name, high-flying aerial tactics are his game. It's time to buckle up and get ready for a ride on Air Scorpio next on WCW New Blood on the block. We then cut to a basketball court, and this is fucking awesome. I've seen this before, and this right here is a reason to watch this video. A kid wants to prove he can make a shot while another little kid complains that the boys are going to be late for school. A limousine then pulls up as a sick beat begins playing, and check this out. I must have watched that bit about 10 times, and it just gets better after every viewing. I love this lady. Either she's super excited to see Cold Scorpio, or she's warning all the other kids, yo, here comes Cold Scorpio in his car, fucking run away. The kid completely messes up the shot and the ball ends up going through Scorpio's sunroof. Scorpio steps out while his girls here look all pissed off. He runs up to slam dunk that shit while this little dude sees his life flash before his eyes. The other kids say that was too cold, and Scorpio's like, aren't you little assholes supposed to be in school? And this little guy says, nah, we're going to the arcade. Scorpio tells the Harlem Globetrotters here that they need to get an education, and Scorpio's going to take the kids to school right this moment. Our guy here wants to ride in Scorpio's limo. He has absolutely no fear, and Cold Scorpio says nah. This lad wonders if they're gonna walk. Scorpio, his ladies, and these kids are gonna step to school. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Cold brings the kids to school, and it cuts over to Scorpio pulling off some sick moves in the ring, and he's also dancing in front of a green screen. There's this part here where our guy multiplies as he's dancing, so I'm guessing that's 6 Cold Scorpio. There's some fine PowerPoint text right here too, and there's Scorpio stepping them little shits into school so they can learn a thing or two. You know, if I had the choice between going to the arcade or doing the step with Cold Scorpio, I'd say fuck the arcade, take me to school, Cold. Also, Cold Scorpio's WCW entrance theme is an absolute certified banger, so this is nothing but pure brilliance and a reason to rush out and buy this tape. Your friend may have WrestleMania 8 featuring Ric Flair versus Randy Savage. You, the savvy and smart wrestling connoisseur, have the Cold Scorpio music video and you'd be the winner. Seriously though, check out Clash of the Champions 22 if you want to see the video. You don't need to buy the New Blood VHS. We see Cold Scorpio versus Johnny Flamingo, also from Clash of the Champions 22, and then we see Scorpio taking a good old-fashioned chin lock. This tape just got a million times better, thanks Flamingo. It ends with a couple of great high-risk moves from Scorpio, including a sweet top rope splash, a twisting leg drop, and the 450. Telling you, Scorpio doesn't get the credit he deserves for introducing WCW fans to this kind of offense. We then see the solid and highly underrated 2 Cold Scorpio vs Chris Benoit match from Super Brawl 3, but you really don't want to watch clips of this one. This one needs to be seen in its entirety. This match was way ahead of the other stuff that WCW were putting on TV at the time. It almost goes to a time limit draw, but Scorpio gets the win with mere seconds left on the clock. Hunt this one down if you have nothing else to watch after this upload. He's as pretty as a picture, he looks just like Little Richard. Johnny B. Bad's the next wrestler featured on this tape. And those who are unaware should take note, Johnny B. Bad may have looked all flamboyant and his look may raise a few eyebrows, especially after he got rid of all this when he joined the World Wrestling Federation. But fans enjoyed Johnny B. Bad and he had some great matches in WCW. As a matter of fact, I prefer his WCW run over his time in the WWF. With that said, we only get a short music video here with Johnny B. Bad highlights, but if you want a good match to check out, look up Johnny B. Bad vs Brian Pillman at Fall Brawl 1995. Speaking of Pillman, Flying Brian's the next featured superstar. I had a quick skip through the remainder of the video and it looks like the remaining 15 minutes of the tape's all dedicated to Pillman, so yeah, the amount of time dedicated to each superstar's all messed up. Brian says he's the original WCW Air Force and if we don't like it, we can all kiss his ass. We then see clips of the outstanding Pillman vs Liger match at Super Brawl 2, and you know, this tape really has made me want to watch these entire matches. I just might fire up Super Brawl 2 and Super Brawl 3 after recording this video. It must have been pretty awful having this tape and nothing else because it leaves you wanting more. At least though you could rewind it and watch 2 Cold Scorpio again. You do get to see a fair few high spots here from Liger vs Pillman though, so in comparison to everything else we have seen so far on this video, it isn't bad. Kinda feels like I'm spoiling the outcomes here by talking about match highlights, whereas I would really prefer to talk about the entire match from start to end. But Flying Brian wins this one when Liger misses a top rope splash. We then see the fallout between Tom Zenk and Brian Pillman. The Z-Man was having some trouble with Scotty Flamingo and JT Southern, and Zenk said he'd be happy to put the light heavyweight title up against either of these 2 assholes. But Zenk wasn't the light heavyweight champion just yet, Brian Pillman was. Flying Brian and Tom Zenk had been friendly with each other, but Pillman wasn't happy with the Z-Man getting ahead of himself. So the two went to Wrestle War 1992 for their scheduled match, and the Z-Man tried to trick Brian into thinking he'd injured his leg. Zenk ends up catching Brian with a big boot when Pillman comes off the top rope, but his follow-up pin was unsuccessful due to Brian having a foot outside the ropes. Zenk then missed a top rope flying kick, and Pillman was able to secure the win. We then see Brad Armstrong and Brian Pillman getting interviewed by Jesse Ventura at Clash 20. Pillman was due to get a light heavyweight title shot at this show, but Armstrong's injured and he's on crutches, so it looks like the match has been called off. Brian says he's trained hard for tonight, he's disappointed, and the more he thinks about it, the more disgraceful this whole situation turns out to be. Brian's fans were tuning in specifically to see him regain the championship, and instead they've got Brad Armstrong crying about a sore knee because he's afraid to fight. Brad explains that he can't fight, and Pillman knows he would fight if he was 100%, but Brian isn't buying it and he slaps Armstrong across the face. A light heavyweight title tournament was then announced on this night too, saying as Armstrong had to forfeit the title, but the belt was quietly retired instead. We skip forward to Clash 21 and it's Pillman who now has the injury. Pillman apologizes for how he acted previously and he even offers Brad a chance to slap him for a little payback, but it was all a setup. Brian attacks Armstrong, Brad decides he still wants to wrestle the match with a bad leg, and he ends up taking a loss after a chop block. We get practically no in-ring action here, we see all the main points of the build-up, but hardly no wrestling at all. The final match then features clips from Halloween Havoc 1992, Flying Brian vs Ricky Steamboat. This was a good match too, and it happened early in Brian's heel turn. He was arrogant, he was aggressive, but in the end he couldn't overcome Steamboat. I'd say this one's pretty underrated too, so check it out if you haven't done so already. WCW New Blood on the Block ends with Jesse Ventura saying, "We just witnessed the latest and greatest young superstars to step into the squared circle. More will come and some will go, but WCW will always be the place to see the hottest wrestling action and the best young talent in the world today." Tony Schiavone then promotes 2 more home videos that were released around the same time period. Deadly Venom, The Best of Sting, and Ravishing Rick Rude Raw. I'll try to hunt these down if you guys want them covered and we'll see what they're all about. I'd be highly interested in watching the Rick Rude tape, to be honest. Schiavone also promotes the WCW Slam Jam album, which by the way is the best wrestling album ever released, and I mean it too, I'm not fucking joking. Before the video ends, we also get a commercial for WCW stuff. If you want to get your hands on some WCW merchandise, all you gotta do is send away for a merchandise catalogue. And that's it. Remember to rewind the VHS or you'll kick yourself later. I've said this a few times and I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but you really do just want to watch the whole matches when watching this tape. It feels like a teaser video or a video filled with match trailers, if you could imagine that. And you kind of spoil the matches for yourself too, because basically every match jumps right to the end after only a few seconds of in-ring action. For me, it's been great because I feel motivated to watch Super Brawl 2 and 3 again, so yeah, that's good. And as mentioned, there would have been young fans who didn't have the pay-per-view matches on video, and this VHS could have been all they had really. So these kind of videotapes did serve a purpose, although you can see why the WWE don't bother uploading these kind of presentations to the network and Peacock. Also, I just really like going back and seeing the overall presentation of these videos and the format the editors went with. Admittedly, the format of this tape wasn't good, but it's kind of fascinating seeing what a WCW non-pay-per-view tape was like from 1993 and seeing how it stacked up against WWF's offerings on Coliseum Video. But that's going to do it for this one, guys, and I'll end it a little early because there's nothing more to say. Plus, I want to watch that 2 Cold Scorpio video another 15 times before I go to bed. Thanks for watching, everyone, and take care.
He's loaded, but fuck the fire, so they say, who is it? So Cold Scorpio.